31-year-old Ben Morecambe's bad luck seems to have earned him a small fortune. Since he was bitten on the right buttock while surfing, he's believed to have been offered big money for his story by a women's magazine. The South Australian had been visiting Port Stephens, north of Newcastle, as the best man to be at his cousin's wedding, when a quick surf before the buck show ended in a flight to hospital, courtesy of a curious bull shark. But according to locals, it's only the second attack in recent memory.
There's only two that I can recall in the last 35 years. They've both been apparently by bull sharks, which are aggressive, and neither of them were fatal. So really, statistics suggest that it's not all that dangerous.
The news hasn't seemed to scare any tourists away from the popular area.
I think it's a little bit dangerous to go to the water now, but we bought us 2 surfboards and now we go to surf.
You've got less chance of being bitten by a shark than hit by a car or a bus or something like that, I think.
Even the local tourism organisation isn't that worried.
They say any publicity is good publicity. I'm not so sure if shark bites is a good publicity story or not. But again, honestly, I think it's the story of the moment. It goes away and I don't think it will have any effect.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It's the best view in Newcastle and home to Australia's oldest lighthouse. But despite best laid plans and 6 years of hope, it doesn't look like the public will be able to access it anytime soon. Restaurateur Neil Slater is the man behind the grand plan for the redevelopment, his dream including a 50-seat restaurant, accommodation and a kiosk. For 6 years, he's jumped through hoops to gain council and state approval and ensure his plans meet heritage requirements. But during a recent visit, the Heritage Department advised Mr Slater the plans would have to change.
Basically, they want us to stay away from the light altogether, which means there's no restaurant, no takeaway.
He's calling for the Minister, Peter Garrett, to intervene now. The federal member for Newcastle, Sharon Grierson, says Mr Garrett is yet to be fully briefed on the issue and that a decision is still 4 to 6 weeks away. But Mayor John Tate wants to take the issue right to the top.
Explain to the Prime Minister that this is a matter of public concern in the Hunter.
Christy Carter, NBN News. While lush and green, this land at Shortland is contaminated. An EPA report has found that ground and surface water on the former Shortland tip site is polluted with metal compounds, hydrocarbons and ammonia. The finding has sparked concern about its potential environmental impact on the adjoining wetlands centre.
We feel very confident that the impact on our centre will be minimal, if anything. The greater concern, of course, is the health of the estuary generally.
If the affected water should leach into the wetlands and travel down the estuary, it would spell disaster for the region's estuary fishing industry. The Department of Environment and Climate Change is now calling for public submissions on whether it should force Newcastle City Council, which owns the tip site, to carry out remediation. Under pressure, Council today admitted it's known about the problem.
We've known for some time that there were some issues there environmentally, and we've been working with the department in terms of how we would address those.
It proposes to cap the affected area to stop the spread of the contaminated water. The Wetlands Centre plans to spend more than $60,000 on a hydrology study to determine the risk to its land. Christy Carter, NBN News.
Gone are the days of hanging by the letterbox. Today's teenagers want their information right here, right now. Lambton High's Kelly Ether was online at 5:45am to get her results. Other Year 12 students received text messages.
It was a bit of an all-nighter. I'm pretty happy with them. It's really dependent on the UAI tomorrow though, but the results, especially my English ones, I'm especially happy with.
The real relief comes tomorrow when those university admission indexes are released. Caitlin Mack from Largs is hoping for 90 or above to get into veterinary science at Charles Sturt Uni. The state's highest ranked primary industry student left the family farm for a trip to town today.
Just got a few days to rush around and do last minute things. It's a nice break from the books, I guess.
And Merewether High's Sam Lewin is still beaming after scoring a perfect 100 in German extension. The Black Hill teenager's love of the language was inspired by, of all things, the 1999 Champions League football grand final.
I hated Manchester United, as I'd say half the population of Australia does. So I was inspired to become a fan, so to speak, of Bayern, and I started reading their website, started learning German. I liked it.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News. It's the tale of two retail centres. The Hunter Street Mall relatively busy at certain times of the day, while Westfield Kotara is constantly swarming with shoppers. Mall retailers are staying positive about Christmas trade, now looking forward to the proposed $500 million redevelopment of the mall.
It's pretty much on par, maybe slightly down on last year, and that I think is just all to do with the weather. I know we've got new shopping centres opening and things like that, but it hasn't affected us too greatly.
But some shoppers are wanting more variety shops and a mall revamp ASAP.
It's very, very quiet. Doesn't seem to be many people around so it's a lot different from when I was younger.
Westfield Kotara has just undergone a massive transformation and it's reaping the rewards.
In Kotara at the moment, sensational. We've probably 50% doubled up from last year.
And the centre's just pumping every day now.
I haven't been here before, but I'm finding that it's got a lot of shops under one roof, and I think I'm liking that.
And according to some Charlestown Square retailers, there's been a drop in shoppers compared to previous years. But centre management says trading has been consistent and they anticipate a steady increase from now leading into Christmas. Late night trading is now underway. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
The Knights may have avoided the wooden spoon, but that hasn't saved the club from a financial loss. The figure won't be finalised until February, but the club says there were several factors that contributed.
You can't budget for a flood in the middle of the year or extremely bad weather conditions or losing all those players in injuries.
Steve Burriston says a $200,000 payout to former CEO Ken Conway will be covered, as the relationship between the club and commercial partners Wests remains strong.
People understand that, and that was the intent of the West Knights agreement, to underwrite the Knights up to $1 million in a poor year, and we've had a poor one.
The Knights have budgeted for a profit next season, and last night the club unveiled the new strip it hopes more fans will come out to watch. Newcastle will be the first in the NRL to use the lightweight fabric that's designed to keep players cooler. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. Despite its growing popularity, Jets owner Con Constantine says the A-League won't survive if a proposed youth league doesn't take shape. Talent in northern New South Wales remains a priority.
There will be the major issue for Newcastle to get to the top, the youth league.
Former Jets captain Paul Ocon is slated as a possible mentor, but Con denies he's being groomed for Gary Van Egmont's job.
No. I always told Paul that if he ever wanted to go in coaching, the youth league would be the ideal place for him to kick it off.
Hardly a public figure in the Hunter, Con says his commitment can't be questioned.
If I wanted to do it in Sydney, nothing would have stopped me. The offers were made to me early in the piece to go and do this in Sydney, and I said no.
If he gets his way, the sporting landscape in Newcastle will change forever. Joint home games for the Knights and Jets, just one of his proposals. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Before the devastating June floods, Churchill's was a thriving electrical retailer.
I think everybody knows that we're sort of wiped out totally in the bottom part of our business. We're still maintaining our carpet side upstairs.
That's left a large space downstairs, the perfect size for the Samaritans Christmas Appeal headquarters, and Paul has generously offered it to the charity. Families can select their gifts from the store and have them wrapped ready for Chrissy Day.
Well, we've had 100 families come in already since last week, and we're expecting another at least 100 families.
And you know it's only days until Santa arrives when the smell of a hot Christmas lunch fills a room. 250 homeless and disadvantaged people enjoyed festivities funded by Life Church in Newcastle West today. And here's something to brighten up those feeling a little blue after the rise in bus fares. Bus driver Margaret Pennell took out the top prize for Best Decorated Bus. She's donated $850 to the Mater Hospital's oncology unit. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Six of the 8 band members in the wrecked vehicle managed to free themselves in this morning's accident, which happened at around 7 o'clock just north of the Moonee turnoff. The band's lead singer died instantly, and another, the group's driver and merchandiser, who suffered critical head injuries, was trapped for an hour while police, fire and emergency service personnel worked to free him. He was transported to the Coffs Harbour Health Campus but died a short time later. The remaining 6 band members were also admitted to hospital with minor injuries. The cause of the double fatality isn't yet known, although police haven't ruled out fatigue.
Pierre's veered from the on the left-hand side of the road down an embankment. It's rolled a number of times before colliding with a tree.
All 8 members of the Geelong-based heavy metal band, the Red Shore, are believed to have been in their early 20s and were due to perform in Sydney tonight. The double fatality comes on a day when Highway Patrol Police launched Operation Safe Arrival. For the next 2 months, police will conduct their high-profile campaign and have a simple message for drivers and their passengers.
It's your life on the line. If your driver's acting irresponsibly or looks tired, get them to pull over. Stop, revive, survive.
Tonight's gig in Sydney was part of a tour being promoted as the Christmas Carnage Tour. Dennis Driver, NBN News.
The lifeguards had left the beach for the day when 2 foreign students ventured into the water and quickly got into trouble. Kiteboarder Simon Bull was sailing past and spotted one of them.
Grabbed him up around under his arm and just hold him in close to me, and he was hanging on a little bit as well. And then just held on with him with one arm and then flew the kite single-handed and just kept swapping my hands to fly the kite and just used the kite to body surf in.
Another kiteboarder rescued the second man, and in another stroke of luck, Nobby's Surf Club members Wayne Finlay and his daughter Sarah were packing up after a meeting at the club and helped stabilise the pair.
Giving them oxygen therapy and just monitoring their breathing, and we tried to get an ambulance as quickly as we could.
The rescued men are expected to make a full recovery. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
In less than 24 hours, 120 workers at One Steel's Mayfield plant will walk off the job for the last time after their positions were made redundant. Now there's little job security for the 60 skeleton staff who remain in the company's employment.
I have a terrible gut feeling that it probably won't last too long, but again, I hope I'm wrong.
It's a similar story at Delta EMD. Their 70 workers were this week told they'll lose their jobs within months. Delta, which manufactures dry cell batteries, was once a market leader. The plant is the only one of its kind in Australia. The company blames the high Australian dollar and cheaper imports from China and Japan for its inability to remain financially competitive.
The Australian Workers' Union says the Australian government has failed the manufacturing industry. It's calling on the Rudd government to introduce policies such as interest-free loan schemes to help Aussie manufacturers compete in the global market.
The company is saying that once the plant's closed, it'll be demolished. And of course there's no return from that.
Christy Carter, NBN News.
After 6 years of negotiations, local businessman Neil Slater has hit another snag in his plan to redevelop Nobby's Headland. He wants to build a restaurant, accommodation and viewing deck on the dilapidated site, and despite gaining local and state government approval, Canberra is now saying it doesn't like the idea.
And basically they said that they were going to recommend a refusal of the proposal unless we pulled a rabbit out of the hat.
The Federal Department of Environment's position could consign Nobby's to eyesore status, with the public locked out for years to come.
I'm still a firm believer and an optimist that common sense is going to prevail. Last Thursday I was optimistic that they were coming up to say, we've had a look at it and all is well. So I'm still staying optimistic. It's just maybe I'm a bit silly.
You don't have to drive far in Newcastle to find plenty of blots on the landscape. There's the Palais Royal, earmarked for units, but demolition has stopped on orders from the developer. The grand old post office. Approval given for a hotel, but no action by the developer. The Newcastle Bowling Club, one of the best views in town and earmarked for a state government revamp. But the most embarrassing example is Surf House here at Merewether. Left crumbling and empty for 18 years, the council is now talking to two groups who want to redevelop it. But don't hold your breath, something might happen next year. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Emotions ran high at Warners Bay High School this morning after this group of students learnt they'd gained a UAI mark of more than 90.
I didn't sleep last night, and to get it this morning, I actually had to refresh the page. I wasn't sure it was right, but no, I'm stoked.
They're merely a handful of the 32 students who scored at least 90, or in HSC language, a band 6 in their subjects. Those results mean for the second year in a row, Warners Bay has had the highest comprehensive high school HSC results across the Hunter and Central Coast.
I think the staff here at Warners Bay High are just so encouraging and they're so persistent. Like even when we've given up, they still just keep going, and I think that's what helped to push so many students this year.
Apparently, there's more to the school's success than its hard-working teachers and students.
But it's also the little extra things that we do, the coaching, the mentoring. In the holidays, in the spring and the winter holidays, we run seminars.
The school's population of over 1,300 also helps.
One of the advantages of a big school is that you can offer a breadth and range of curriculum.
Meanwhile, on the selective school front, Merewether High led the way with 124 of its students gaining top marks in subjects, 106 top band results were achieved at Newcastle Grammar School, and St Francis Xavier's College achieved 197 marks above 90. Madeline Bond, NBN News. There's no doubt Australians love their pets. With 63% of all households home to an animal, we have the highest rate of pet ownership in the world. At Christmas, Aussies spend an average of $20 pampering pooches and cats. According to the RSPCA, toys like these, which can be filled with food, are the best gifts for dogs.
In the wild, they spend 95% of their time looking for food, so by giving them something that keeps them active, both physically and mentally, it's going to keep them out of trouble.
While for cats, it's more simple gifts like a small ball. But there are some things we shouldn't give our pets.
People do tend to overdo the treats at this time of year, so, just like us, a treat's nice, but you don't have so many that they make you sick.
The RSPCA says it's also important not to give pets Christmas foods like leg ham, the fat off roast meat, chocolate and grapes, which can all be potentially fatal. While the animal shelter advises against giving pets as surprise gifts, it's asking anyone who wants to buy a cat or dog to adopt one of their animals, with the kitten breeding season off to an early start.
There's no way you'll get this variety at a pet store, that's for sure. So 40, all different breeds, shapes, colours, everything you could think of, we've got it here looking for a home.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
With so many new faces, competition for a first-grade position will be tough. Every man and his dog turning out for the last session of the year. Too hot for some, but most say they're impressed with the new look pre-season, catered to the needs of individual players.
We're doing long sessions and stuff like that, but the boys are really enjoying it, and you can see in the quality of the stuff we're doing, it's really helping us.
Quite simply, it doesn't make any sense to me for, Simo, for instance, to be doing the same sort of work as Corey Patterson.
A former Knight was quickly made to feel like one of the boys, before also delivering personal attention. Andrew Johns isn't working exclusively with Newcastle, but former teammates are hoping he still bleeds red and blue.
Just hope he's teaching Para and Bulldogs different stuff to us and teaching them the wrong stuff.
Injury concerns saw some players on light duties, but Jared Mullen's shoulder won't keep him out of pre-season trials.
I've been doing a lot of weights on it and stuff like that. Start full contact after Chrissy and it's feeling good.
The coach believes the squad has blended well, giving the faithful plenty to look forward to.
Most of the younger boys are coming back on the 3rd of January. We feel like they can do with a few extra days before all the boys will join us for full training on the 7th.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. It's one of the best greyhound in Australia, but that hasn't helped the Garden stay. Now a deal between Tabcorp and the New South Wales Coursing Association will see meetings at the Beam to foreign markets, prompting investment in the facility.
To get to this agreement with Tabcorp is a fantastic opportunity for the NCA to shore up their financial position.
The Dogs weren't by the horse flu, but revenue was, with Ground Racing taking a percentage of all TAB earnings. In more good news, prize money will return to pre-EI levels on Boxing Day. Meanwhile, the complex will host the latest round of the Country Challenge Series this Saturday as life finally gets back to normal. And despite being downgraded from a race club to a trial track today, the Cessnock Greyhound Racing Fraternity says it's still hoping to be allocated meetings in the future. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Traffic was steady but flowing freely along the F3 this morning as thousands of motorists headed north. Many took advantage of driver reviver stations between Sydney and Newcastle.
Absolutely flat out, and we keep running out of coffee and milk.
As always, police are urging people to do the right thing on the road. Operation Safe Arrival began last night, with officers already experiencing disappointing results. Around 1,400 breath tests have been conducted across the region, with 9 people caught out. Among those was a 24-year-old Spears Point man who was detected drink driving twice in under 2 hours.
Now, that is just a blatant disregard to the law and the safety of other road users.
Extra traffic police are now on duty targeting speed, fatigue and seatbelts. And it's not just on the streets, they're also monitoring offensive behaviour like road rage in shopping centre car parks.
The offence is still the same, and we do not want people fighting and arguing.
Ironman events generally dominate surf life saving, while there are a range of surfboat carnivals as well, so it makes sense that those who star on the ski and board also get their own time in the sun. Not that there was much of that today for the opening round of the regional series. Racing elimination style, fields were whittled down thanks to back-to-back racing.
It's perfect, and you really notice it when you're racing, when it comes down to state and Aussies, that this stuff here, it's the best thing you can do.
And after only just sneaking into the 3-man final, Shade dominated the decider. With Trent Martin his shadow over the finishing line, the Evoca clubby cruised home and is looking forward to the bigger events still to come.
As hard as it gets, really, and it's a perfect build to the Nutrigrain and Aussies and state too, because heat, semis, finals, it just gets you in that routine.
And how about 15-year-old Amy Nerthen? She endured 7 elimination heats before coming home first in the Open Women's Final in what was a tricky day out at Redhead.
It's pretty tricky, waves coming from everywhere, but once you're out there it's alright, nice and smooth.
Probably about a week and a half off of no golf, and then start practicing again and try and work on a few things to try and prepare for the start of the season.
It's something none of us want to see. Cars that were once full of Christmas presents raided by heartless thieves.
Thieves are then taking the opportunity to smash into these cars and steal these valuable presents. There's been a couple of reports of that.
But it's not just gifts thieves are after this holiday season, with vehicles being plundered at beachside car parks.
Things like the GPSs, stereos in cars, other valuables. Don't leave valuables in your cars in sight.
With Christmas just 2 days away, police say people should be vigilant about locking homes.
Thieves also target homes this time of year when they're aware of under the Christmas tree where the valuable presents are.
And anyone who's going away over the holidays is offered this advice.
Make sure that the house and the home and the yard looks like it's been lived in.
Madeline Bond, NBN News. It looks like an ordinary shed, but step inside and it's a trove of marine treasures. Around 100 oceanic creatures can be found at the Australian Shark and Ray Centre, which opened at Bob's Farm this weekend.
It's the first interactive aquarium in the world that we know of. What we're about is allowing people to really get up close and personal, really touch and feel and get an understanding of the sharks and rays that we have here.
It's the one place in the Hunter people can swim with and feed sharks free of fear, especially following this week's attack on a surfer at Port Stephens. While the centre's only been open one day, business is booming, much like the rest of the region's tourism, with sun-seeking visitors already descending on the Hunter's coastline.
I spoke to a number of the hotel operators over the last week and they're all reporting very strong demand over the January period.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
It was a somewhat unexpected revelation at today's final session before Christmas. Talking to NBN News off camera, Mario Jardel explained his manager is in talks with a club which could be ready to take him during the European transfer window that begins on January 1. It's unclear what his departure would mean for the team, with finding a replacement so late in the season complicated.
We've just got to be very, very careful of the fact that if he were to do that, it's got to be someone who's obviously going to be really the right person, or otherwise it becomes a bit more of a distraction in the dressing room.
Joel Griffiths was given the day off given he got married only 2 days ago. Those who attended the wedding, however, didn't get off as lightly, with their session extended as the coach keeps everyone focused. Stu Mishalik's season of interruptions continues. The talented midfielder wasn't able to train, this time with a stomach virus.
Because of his appendix and the Ollie Roos, and he's had shin splints and what have you, so it's been a bit stop-start, but he's obviously an influential player for us, and it's important that he's right.
Newcastle plays Wellington at home next Sunday.
Twas the day before Christmas and all through the shops lots of creatures were stirring, making plenty of stops. As always, the jolly fat man was a popular distraction. Despite making his own last-minute preparations, Santa still stopped by for a few happy snaps. He's made his list, but there was still time to make a last-ditch effort for that special gift. Some presents will dwarf others under the tree, and for those of us with no talent for wrapping, the experts were on hand. Traders in Hunter Street Mall received an early present, with a steady flow of pedestrian traffic today. With shopping centres not reopening until Thursday, inner-city retailers will be hoping to attract big crowds on Wednesday. But while they are allowed to trade on Boxing Day, some retailers won't be reopening until the 27th. Those who are reopening say it's an opportunity for exposure they shouldn't have passed up. Meanwhile, there was a feeding frenzy at seafood outlets. Thousands lining up to secure the freshest catch for that traditional Aussie Christmas meal. Plenty of variety, but as always, prawns were the seafood of choice, rolling out the door in bucket loads. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
The festive fare is in the fridge, ready to be served, while final preparations are being carried out at the foreshore. Newcastle's railway sheds will be swarming with people tomorrow. Families doing it tough and those feeling isolated will join 170 volunteers.
We're expecting anywhere between 500 and 700 people. There'll be a beautiful fresh lunch of ham off the bone, turkey and salads.
It's taken the Samaritans months to organise everything from the sound system to the sponsorships.
If we didn't have that sponsorship of actual food and the dollars, we just couldn't put it on.
Lunch will be served at midday, while the man of the moment, Santa, will swing by at 1 o'clock. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Water police are quick to ensure they have adequate resources to deal with emergencies, but due to the recall and assessment of their 7-metre cat fleet, for unspecified reasons, some routine and non-urgent jobs such as breakdowns will go on a waiting list. Boat owners can reduce their chances of getting caught out by checking fuel, batteries and the general mechanical condition of their boat, safety equipment and considering sea conditions. Over the past year, there have been 20 deaths in boating accidents statewide. In most, people weren't wearing life jackets. Speeding on the water and alcohol are the next biggest threats. After just completing safety checks for the Sydney to Hobart fleet, Coastal Patrol Newcastle will join a network of bases monitoring holiday marine movements, urging skippers to log on and off for trips outside.
Tonight, Newcastle's Christchurch Cathedral will be alive with the sound of music as people sing their hearts out while 26-year-old Peter Guy plays the pipe organ. He says it's the best job in the world and it's not hard to see why. This is his office, way up high in the organ loft, and what a view, not to mention the acoustics. Peter grew up playing the piano but switched to organ when he arrived at the Newcastle Conservatorium, and he hasn't looked back. Only a select few actually get to perform on a pipe organ like this one.
Never a dull moment to come up here and play it. Every sound on it sounds beautiful.
He says the music is an important part of any service, particularly at Christmas.
To me it adds grandeur and ceremony to the liturgy. Sort of quite dignified, and the organ takes a leading role in leading the congregation. When you've got 700 or 800 people perhaps in the church, sometimes a guitar just doesn't cut it.
His instrument is one of the best in New South Wales, if not Australia. Built in 1906, it has 2,500 pipes, creating what Peter describes as an orchestra at his fingertips.
The organ, you can be trumpets, you can be strings, you can be the woodwind instruments. It's fantastic.
And it will be at its best tonight.
That's great. It's a chance to really open the organ up, especially I'm looking forward to Midnight Mass tonight with many hundreds of people here and really being able to give the organ a full going over.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Won't quite happen for him. Oh, and into the corner of the net from Mark. Good track going on between Simon Allardyce and Pearson. But here's Kenny Miller, and he's put Derby 2-1.
Play offside, but
maybe it was.
Well, he got away with it.
Might be something here. Viduka is 2-2. Just at a time when Newcastle appear to have run out of ideas, they are back in it. It's a lifesaver from Mark Viduka.
Well, it's just a long ball. More slips. Doesn't get anything on it really, and it falls to Viduka.
There's no doubt Clint Newton has ridden a year of ups and downs, leaving Newcastle in a cloud of controversy mid-season. After falling out with coach Brian Smith, he joined Melbourne, where he bagged a premiership. Recently squeezed out by salary cap restraints, the 26-year-old leaves for English club Hull KR on Thursday.
It was either Melbourne or England. It was just my way of showing a bit of loyalty to a club that showed me a tremendous amount.
But he admits a return to Newcastle post-England remains a possibility.
I'd be silly if I ruled it out completely, so depending on what happens, a year or two in rugby league is a long time. Right now, it just wasn't viable for me to go back there.
His sister Christy has a big year ahead as well. Wiser for her rookie professional season, the talented golfer will hit the circuit in Australia, Asia and Europe during 2008, which will culminate with her marriage to retired Hawthorn AFL player Ben Dixon.
It should be an exciting year, and maybe there's a reason why I didn't get my full card so I can plan my wedding.
Able to unwind with friends and family at the recent Celebrity Classic tournament at Pacolban, Christie's aim is to do well at home events before heading overseas again.
Just going to focus solely at the moment on the Australian Open and the Masters. I've got starts in both of those, so hopefully if I can have 2 good finishes, that should set me up for the following year.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. It just wouldn't be Christmas without the Hollies spending the eve in Sydney tending to their boat Aurora before the big race. This will be Jim's 20th Sydney to Hobart, while wife Mary is lining up for her 11th trip in a race that's become such a big part of their lives.
Oh, it's good fun. It's very exciting, and it's good to be around the other boats and racing against them.
One of those will be Lake Macquarie clubmate Inna Circle, who just can't wait to get started.
Well, it's a huge effort to mount a campaign like this, and it's just going to be good to get on the water and actually do some sailing instead of paperwork and fixing all those little things that need to be fixed.
Something they can't change, though, is the weather, with both disappointed in today's report.
It's looking like there's going to be a bit of downwind sailing, at least in the early parts of the race, so the more modern boats will sail to their handicap better in those conditions than us.
Sharing a similar design, there will be a fair race between the pair too to reach Hobart first sometime on December 30, with a healthy rivalry sure to be driving both.
We'll get to Hobart around about 1600 on the 30th of December.
That's a pretty accurate forecast.
Oh yes, I've worked out.
But of course, only time will tell.
At Christmas, we all want to give gifts, and we take a lot of time and effort in choosing the right gift to give to people, especially those whom we love most. Even the finance section of a national daily newspaper recently said that we need to give presents that last forever. Christmas is about God's present to us of himself through Jesus Christ, and that's a present that lasts forever. I hope that this Christmas, as we give gifts, we might give gifts internationally that last forever too, like honouring the Kyoto Protocol, about giving goats and live animals to people in desperate situations in the Sudan. Let's imitate God by giving gifts that last forever.
I find it fascinating that human beings spend zillions of dollars, trying to find out whether there's intelligent life in outer space. We listen into radio waves, the scientists examine all kinds of possibilities when they launch lunar or Mars probes and so on. And yet, in the effort to do that, as commendable as it is, we often forget the fact that God has over thousands of years trying to speak to human beings. The Bible records all of that, and at Christmas time, when we celebrate the birth of God amongst us, we see the culmination of that. Now, to many people that might sound a bit far-fetched in our modern scientific age, and yet it's a real lesson for us to listen to the God who speaks to us, not from outer space, but from our hearts. I would only hope that this Christmas we can all learn to accept that fact. And I wish all the viewers a very happy Christmas.
While most of us were tucked up in bed awaiting Santa's arrival last night, churches and cathedrals swelled with people reflecting on the true meaning of Christmas. The carol "O Come All Ye Faithful" certainly rung true at Newcastle's Christchurch Cathedral, where every man and his dog were welcome for midnight mass, more than 1,000 churchgoers in all. And while it was a late night for some, it was an early start for others, with a plethora of presents piled up under the tree, ready to be unwrapped. From the Gold Coast to Gosford and Taree to Tamworth, the scenes were somewhat similar, with laughter filling living rooms and families exchanging gifts and grateful smiles. And from the Christmas magic to the miserable weather, beaches and parks were almost deserted right along the coast. According to the Bureau of Meteorology, it was the coldest Christmas day since 1994 in Newcastle. Volunteer lifesavers and lifeguards were rostered on at Nobby's Beach. It's normally filled with families and children testing out new toys, but not today.
This is 18 years that I've been on Christmas Day, and this is by far the quietest I've ever seen it.
Despite the weather, more than 500 people enjoyed the Samaritans' lunch in the park. That's an increase on last year, organisers putting it down to more and more people doing it tough.
People who are homeless and people who live in a very isolated situation, so it's an opportunity for people to come and have a good time together.
It's a mammoth feast with an army of 170 volunteers turning on Christmas cheer for those in need.
It's no wonder Broadmeadows Boxing Day races are referred to as Newcastle's equivalent of Melbourne Cup. With around 15,000 people through the gates today, it's the biggest event on the NJC's calendar.
We've already sold 10,500 before we start, so it's a great boost to what's become a magnificent day.
Organisers thrilled with the turnout following a tumultuous few months of equine influenza.
It's even more important this year because EI has been so devastating to the racing industry, not just Newcastle Jockey Club, but everyone connected with the industry.
Prize money of $11,000 per race was on offer, but today the focus was less on the prize than on the party. Trackside, there was no shortage of glammed-up girls, though this year the boys gave them a run for their money in the fashion stakes.
All the ladies look for fashion, so you've got to be in amongst it. We just wanted to look schmick.
Police conducted foot and bike patrols of the racecourse, targeting the responsible service of alcohol and alcohol-related crime in an operation that continues into tonight.
Highway Patrol will be out in force and obviously be conducting random breath testing.
Police will also patrol the city's licensed venues to enforce liquor laws and target antisocial behaviour.
There are a significant amount of police working tonight. There will be a high visible presence.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
It was a welcome sight for organisers and trainers, racehorses thundering around the track while it was standing room only for spectators.
It's terrific to be back. It's been a long time and it's great for everyone involved.
Equine influenza brought racing at Broadmeadow to a halt for about 4 months, and there were concerns horses wouldn't return for the Jockey Club's most lucrative meeting of the year.
Their first race meeting was a fortnight ago, and one stage it looked like we may not race until next year, so whatever happens today is a great bonus.
There was still the associated security measures due to EI around the stables, but that didn't seem to matter. Nathan Perry, son of Newcastle trainer Paul Perry, says their horses are at their best health-wise, but admits more race fitness is needed after the influenza outbreak.
The horses are terrific. Yeah, the horses nothing wrong with them. They're in good health, and hope we can get some winners today.
Larrikin hoop Alan Robinson was also at his best, winning race 1 over 1,200 metres on the Chris Lees trained Dame Matico. And now to our feature, race 5, the RPF building handicap over 1,400 metres. Zubak was way out in front and they were never going to catch him. $2 for the win and $1.20 for the place. There was no third dividend. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
It's been more than 5 years since commercial fishing was banned on Lake Macquarie, but some marine life still isn't flourishing. The lake is reserved for recreational fishing, but members of the Lake Watch group say some people aren't playing by the rules.
Well, obviously, if you're setting a 200-metre net to catch fish illegally, you're not going to be able to eat them all yourself. They are being sold on the black market.
To keep their identities secret, few people know every member of the group. They're spread around the entire body of water, and their information can lead to investigations by the Department of Fisheries and substantial fines.
They definitely are not spies. They are guardians of the fish stocks of Lake Macquarie.
So if you're on the lake this summer catching more than your fair share of seafood, the $1 million views won't be the only thing Lake Watch is watching.
From people in boats to people living in homes on vantage points of headlands with binoculars, telescopes or whatever, watching the lake.
The group says a reduction in the number of fisheries officers in the Hunter has made their job even more important. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
The Navy may have only had its full complement of 6 Collins-class subs since 2003, but the Rudd government has started work to replace them around 2025. With the Hunter having previously done bit pieces on major naval defence contracts, Defence Minister Joel Fitzgibbon has told his parliamentary secretary to ensure local industry is ready for the next opportunity.
One of the things I've spoken to Greg Combay about is working from day one to ensure that the Hunter's defence industry is as efficient and as competitive as it can possibly be, to make it well placed to pick up some of these defence contracts.
And the new sub announcement is already registered on the Hunter business radar.
We're very excited about the Fitzgibbon-Combay duo. We see this as a good opportunity for government to spread the funds around, and certainly appears on our agenda for our defence group in the new year.
Meantime, it's been a busy 4 weeks for the new Defence Minister, including visits to our troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, where he found ADF personnel being held in high regard.
They are absolutely committed, highly skilled and determined to do whatever's asked of them very, very well.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
It's summer's most fashionable and fun accessory. But the backyard pool can be downright dangerous. A lesson Tony Edwards learned when his son Liam was just a baby.
He was right next to me. He was about 1 year old. I looked away for a second and he was in the water. I didn't hear him. He just crawled off and fell in the water. He was right next to me. And so I had to jump in and fish him out. It's so quick.
Liam now swims like a fish. But this family doesn't take any chances with pool safety.
We always make sure there's someone in the pool area with them, even if we're not swimming, there's someone out here in this area just to keep your eye on the kids.
And that's the key, according to KidSafe.
Keep your eyes on your child at all times when you're near water.
It's a message Leonie Forsyth took to parents today at the post-Christmas sales.
That's one of the hard jobs of parenting, is knowing where your kids are and what they're doing at all ages.
KidSafe hopes the reminder will help prevent more drowning tragedies this summer, keeping the beach and the pool what they should be, good family fun.
For this week at least, training is the only place you'll see the footwork of Joel Griffiths. The striker, one of 2 players to sit this weekend's game out through suspension.
Every player on the pitch has to raise their game by, 2 to 5%, and if we do that, we'll definitely compensate for Joel not being there.
Newcastle coach Gary Van Egmond says discipline's not an issue for the Jets, but it could become one if players fall out of line on Sunday.
You've got Mark Bridge who's on 3 yellow cards, and you've got Adam Griffiths who's on 6 yellow cards, and if he gets another one, he'll have a 2-week holiday.
Given a week off over Christmas, a knee injury could yet see defender Stephen Labert miss the Wellington game, with Steve Eagleton and Joe Wheelhouse named as possible replacements. It'll be Newcastle's first home match in more than a month, but there's much more at stake for the visitors, former Jets among them.
Coveney was with us last year, and I'll be marking an old teammate in Ahmed Elrich as well. So, no, they've definitely got some great players, and I'm actually quite surprised they're not a bit further up the table.
For us to get 3 points would nearly more or less kill off any chance that they had getting into the top 4. So we know that it's going to be a very difficult game because it's like their last hurrah. It's like their grand final.
There'll be no grand entrances at Energy Australia Stadium though, with the redevelopment of the western side underway, blocking access between the stand and Southern Hill. Adam McIlwright, NBN News. He is the perennial backup for New South Wales, but what an option after a formative 12 months for the man they call the Scud.
It's been good to get a go. I hadn't played any one-day cricket before this year, and it's been good to do okay. The 4-day stuff, I've played a little bit of the Pura Cup, and I've done okay at that as well.
Depends on your definition of okay. In March, he bagged a 5-wicket haul for New South Wales. In the one-day series, though, he struggled much like his Blues teammates. His side is last in the latter competition but leads the 4-day tournament, providing the 26-year-old with enough ambition to keep the momentum going.
Be very, very nice to win the Pura Cup competition. And in terms of specific goals, I don't really have any personal ones, but just continue taking as many opportunities as I have been in the past.
One of those opportunities will see him play 2020 cricket for the Blues on New Year's Day. Another could lie in switching sides following interest from other states.
It's a bit flattering, I guess, but look, I love Sydney and I love New South Wales. I cherish my baggy blue cap, so I'm very happy here.
Adam McIlwright, NBN News.
The extent to which Eric Arnold touched his protégés' lives is remarkable.
Went through a bit of a rough patch in 2004 where I was sick and wasn't performing and had a very bad year, and Eric and his wife Pam were good enough to take me into their house and really look after me. And
the 3-time Olympic champion turned coach died after a lengthy battle with cancer. His passing has devastated Newcastle's swimming fraternity.
So he's going to be sorely missed, and, he's had a huge impact on my life.
Since the 1970s, Eric has trained several Hunter Olympians and taught thousands of children how to swim. Those he worked closely with say he was more than just a professional influence.
Not just coach up and down the pool, but also a lot to do with the decisions I've made in my life as well. So I guess that the one thing is that I'll always have what his voice was in my head. So to me, I guess he lives on that way,
Madeline Bond, NBN News. If the estimates are correct, the state government's privatisation of the electricity industry will deliver a $15 billion windfall, $3 billion from selling the retailers, including Energy Australia, and $12 billion by leasing out the power stations. And yes, the Hunter will see some of that money.
The government will make an announcement in the new year on what it will do with the proceeds, and I can assure you there will be a Hunter package as well.
Upper Hunter MP George Souris is demanding that package have substance.
And it's a very rightful claim of the people of the Hunter Valley to ask for a decent share of those capital proceeds to be reinvested in the region from which they were generated.
He wants a much better return from the $2 billion worth of coal royalties the government has earned over the past 7 years, most of it from Hunter Coal.
People ask how much royalty is collected from this Hunter Valley towards the benefit of New South Wales. How much money do we ever see back?
The capital works program for the Hunter last year was over $1 billion.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
The 3 competition points are the aim, but it's bragging rights over Big Brother that Tarek Elrich is chasing tomorrow night.
Memory bank. Those 20 years in the backyard, mate. They're coming out this weekend again.
Older brother Ahmed made his return from injury in their round 2 encounter, and the pair enjoyed every bit of it. With friendly ribbing starting at Christmas, now extended family and friends are queuing up to watch the rematch.
Got uncles and aunties that I haven't spoken to in years saying, we're coming down, so can you fix some tickets?
There'll be many more chances to see Tarek in a Jets jumper though, with the 20-year-old agreeing to terms to remain in Newcastle. The only sticking point remains the length of the deal.
Great place, people great, love the place, call it home, 2 hours away from my parents.
Kick-off tomorrow night at 7. The runs flowed for Charlestown, but unfortunately so too did wickets. James Crowley removed by Josh Hazelwood for 25. Martin Dunn picked up the slack, with some powerful shots to keep the scoreboard ticking over. But going for one too many proved his downfall, with Brendan Rickson sweating on this skied chance. The crowd liked it, especially when captain Jeff Cook had Jed Dixon edging on 22. Most Charlestown batsmen getting starts but failing to go on with it as they managed 179. In reply, Tamworth made steady progress, but Tim Kensell didn't get past 15. It was just a small stutter for the home side, who passed the total just 3 wickets down.